Greetings one and all, this is the Fenneking here, bringing you Pokemon Showdown laddering in OU. We're going to be using the team that we built last time. A couple variations I made after the video. First of all, I gave everyone a nickname, finished nicknaming everyone. Second, you'll notice that, I guess you'll see as we go. For now, I send in Homie Appliance against this Mono Poison team. I just go for the Hydro Pump. There's not really any good switch-ins besides Tentacruel, but I don't think you want to send that in against a Rotom. I go for the hard read on Volt Switch to try and get some momentum so I can switch into my Rapid Spinner, Hitmontop, who replaced Conkeldurr. I really needed Rapid Spin support. And then I end up just taking out the Nidoqueen with Hydro Pump. And out comes Drapion. I know this thing's going to be physical. He's probably going to want to set up, so I go for a Will-O-Wisp. And he gets a crit knockoff. That's kind of unfortunate. Did a lot more than it should have. And I end up missing the Will-O-Wisp. So we're kind of getting hacked early on, not going in our favor. And I decide, okay, I just need to cut this guy's attack, and I need to get these hazards out of the way. So I'm going to go into Bruce Chan and get crit knocked off again. Get my Assault Vest off. This is not going very well. I decided I really just at all costs need to get the Rapid Spin. I'm very happy he didn't go into Gengar there because I was forced to just go for a very obvious play there. Not much I could have done. And he gets a little greedy as I'm trying to sack off my Bruce Chan, go for a close combat. He takes 50% from it, so I guess that's why you don't get greedy with the stat boosts. Especially when we're this early on. Like, he's trying to pull off a sweep when I still have 6 members in my party left. Not exactly the most effective. Now I'm able to just go into May 7th, 1945. My Victini, which is Scarfed and Outspeed for the kill. V-Crate hits all of his team insanely hard except Tentacruel, but I would assume Tentacruel at this point is Special Wall and the Venusaur is the Physical Wall. And so V-Crate will still hit a Tentacruel pretty hard as long as they're specially invested rather than physically. So we end up taking out Drapion, and he goes into Venusaur, and I decide, you know what, there's not really much this thing can do to me, so I'm just going to go for another V-Create. Not much reason not to. I'll just keep nuking him. And it does over half, which is really good considering he's physically defensive, and he has Thick Fat. At least I would guess he's physically defensive. If he's not, I guess my fault on that. He goes for a Protect after the Toxic. He's going to try and stall me. I just decide to keep going for V-Create, and he goes into Tentacruel. And I don't want to stay in against this thing. He's obviously going to go for a Scald. So I decide, you know, why not? Homie Appliance is a free switch in here. It can tank anything Tentacruel wants to throw at it. And I can just get a free Volt Switch because they no longer have their ground type immunity, electric type immunity, which is a ground type rather. At this point, you know, I decide to go for the free Volt Switch. I tank a Sludge Bomb, but I do get poisoned. So Homie's going to be going down. At this point, I'm going to be saving it for death fodder. I go into UFO. And I decide to make the hard read, expecting the Venusaur to come in. I really don't want to get stuck against that Venusaur, so I decide to go for Flash Cannon. And it actually is a 2-hit KO from that range. So I'm able to take out Tentacruel nice and easy like that. And I'm feeling good about my position right here. I've got like all the momentum and you know, 2 more Pokemon on my team at the moment than he does. No more hazards or anything. Like, I'm feeling pretty good about how this game is going. His Mega is half health. He goes into Gengar, and I decide now is the time for the Death Fodder. I don't want to just tank a hit. He does miss the Focus Blast, which doesn't matter because I'm poisoned. So I decide to go in Victini here because I'm Scarfed. I can outspeed, and I can V-Create anything on his team. Or Zen Headbutt, I guess. He ends up being faster than me. He's obviously Scarfed, which doesn't matter. Like, we can tank a fighting type move that isn't Stab pretty well. He goes for Protect here. He lands it. And I decide I don't want to just let my Victini die to poison like that. So I end up going into UFO. And go for a flash cannon. He gets another protect. You know, as long as he's going to protect stall, this is going to be a very frustrating match for us. Flash cannon ends up doing way more than I expected it to. I expected, you know, a good 30%, but it ends up doing almost 50. He gets another protect off. Manages to knock out UFO with the leech seed. And at this point I decide to go into Chinese Monstrosity because I switched out Psychic for Heal Bell. We were having some problems with status conditions, so I decided, you know, let's put Heal Bell on Chinese Monstrosity, our Celebi. And now Victini is cured of its poison. And you know, you can poison Celebi if you want. It's not a huge deal. We have natural cure on this thing. I decided I really want to paralyze Venusaur. You know, kind of. And if he goes into Crobat, that's nice too, because it makes it even that much easier to outspeed. He ends up landing another protect, dodges the Thunder Wave. And I just want to get that Thunder Wave, so I go for it again. There's not really anything Venusaur can do to me besides the Toxic, so I'm not too scared of it. I am immune to Leech Seed. I do manage to get him paralyzed, and hopefully that'll help our situation. He does... I don't know what he was trying to do there, but he does get fully paralyzed. And I go and have Randall Mega Evolve and decide to go for a Dragon Dance. It ends up paying off because he goes for Protect. I go for another one as he Toxics me. I'm just going to try and go for a sweep. Like, you know, hope that the Para in conjunction with how many Protects he's used can afford me a few hits. Return ends up doing a ton of damage. He does not get parried. He does get a Leech Seed off. Now I go for another return. Roost is not quite worth it right now, considering how much residual damage I'll be taking from the Poison Stack and the Leech Seed. So I just keep spamming return, hoping for a gap in his defense, hoping the Protect will someday not work. But, you know, this guy's luck is definitely on point this match. And there it is again. Randall going down. And Venusaur at full health. So that's kind of a downer right now. And I debate going into Celebi before deciding, you know what, maybe I can get some para-flinch action going on. Maybe he can miss a few protects. I don't know. We end up getting a crit, but he does not get parried or flinched, which is unfortunate. I would have much rather had that. But at this point, I decide I just really need to save Victini, especially considering Crobat can beat Celebi, but it can't really beat Victini. So I kind of need to save Victini. I can't afford to just sack it off like that. But, you know, without Psychic, there's not really anything Chinese Monstrosity can do to Venusaur. This ends up being a point where I just decide, okay, well, I don't want to play this stall game, so I'm just going to go into Victini. And if I die, I die, you know. So he does get the Toxic, and that's GG. Especially since he lands a Protect again. So, you know, I'm kind of feeling salty about that match by this point. I decide to forfeit and go into our next game. Hopefully a little more hacksless. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting team. He leads with a Pikachu against Homie Appliance. He does have a Gardevoir on his team and an Infernape, some kind of more top-tier threats. He has a lot of UU Mons on this team. Or she, rather. I mean, it is a girl, so I don't know. You never know on this game, or online games in general, if someone's actually a girl. Anyways, Bruce Chan comes in, tries to lower the attack because I expect it to be physical Pikachu. You know, light orb, Volt Tackle kind of shenanigans. He does go for a knockoff, doesn't really bug us too much. I go into Chinese Monstrosity and get my rocks up as he poisons me with Milotic. Now I decide he's not going to come into Pikachu. If he does, that's okay because we're physically defensive. But I really want to get something paralyzed. So we go for Thunder Wave. And he goes for an Ice Beam. I don't want to be part of that right now. And there's not anything Milotic can do that I'm afraid of with Homie. So I just go into Homie. And I make a hard read here. And the Pikachu does come out and is easily KO'd by the Hydro Pump. So already making some good plays in this battle. And feeling a lot better about it than last game. And right here I would kind of expect him to go into something fast, either the Gardevoir or a fast threat like Infernape. But he instead goes for Milotic. I go for the free Volt Switch because I don't want to make the same read twice for a Hydro Pump. And I get the free switch into Chinese Monstrosity. He misses a Toxic, which it could have mattered. But we go for a Giga Drain here, expecting him to go for the Ice Beam, which he does, and now he is in KO range. I don't expect him to want to keep his Milotic here, considering the Stealth Rock pressure as well as it being paralyzed, so I just go for a free Giga Drain. He does recover, but we're kind of going to win this stall war, considering para, and that we can attack and heal at the same time. For some reason, he decides to go into a raw switch. Doesn't really matter, considering Milotic's going to be taken out by Stealth Rocks pretty much. But, if you want to go for that, that's alright. We go for Bruce Chan here, because I don't really know what else to do. And he goes for Nasty Plot, and that was a mistake, because our Mach Punch can now take him out. We're not going to play around, we're just going to go for a Mach Punch. You don't want to mess around when there's a Houndoom with ×2 special attack on the field. And he sends out Crocodile. And, Bruce Chan is, here. He can take it Outrage, and he can just dish it back out with Close Combat. Bruce Chan putting in a lot of work in this match. Even though it's kind of a lower tier Mon. It's kind of cool to see that happen. I'm by no means someone who needs to use different, underused kind of Pokemon on my teams. I'm perfectly fine with using, more upper tier threats. I feel like those are the Mons who are less gimmicky, who are more about raw, like, power. Like, they're just good Mons, and they're fun to use, I feel like. But, it is cool to see some of those lower tier Mons with some interesting sets when they work out. I go for a free Recreate there. Scarf Victini at this point kind of wrecks his team. It's kind of a wrap, but I go into, pretty much, I have so many checks to his Pokemon at this point, there's not really anything he can do. Something I would have suggested to this player is you send in their Infernape as a lead and set up rocks, because a lot of their other Mons would really benefit, get a couple KOs they wouldn't have picked up with rocks up. Some way, like maybe a Tailwind or Sticky Web or something would have been nice too, because their sweepers aren't the fastest. They're kind of sweepers that are very good, but they need some support. So, yeah. Also, their own like Rapid Spinner would have been good. But it's pretty much GG at this point. I go for a Thunderbolt, and that is going to just take out the Infernape. Doesn't have that great of defenses, and not going to be living a Choice Specs Stab Thunderbolt. And that means GG for us. Nice and easy. So we're now 1-1 in this session. And going to be getting another match. And this person's team is kind of interesting, not what you'd normally see. I expected them to actually lead with Shuckle, but they go into Goodra instead. Not bad. Like, it's a good way to handle homing appliance. So I kind of sit here for a little while debating what I should do. They do not have an immunity to electric, so I just go for a volt switch. I don't really have to worry too much about that. And I go into UFO because I'm expecting toxic or a dragon type move, and I can handle both with a steel type. And I decide I'm going to go for another volt switch. And there it is. There's the switch I was waiting for. And now I can go have a free switch in to homing appliance. And this thing is just going to be annoying, so I'm going to try and take it out before it can set up too much. But a volt switch is not going to even get close to enough to take it out. So he is going to be able to get rocks up as well. It isn't that big of a deal considering I'm going to be rapid spinning anyways for the sticky web. But, you know, Bullet Punch does not take it out either. This Shuckle is bulkier than you'd think, being how low it is. I decided to just get the rapid spin off. And now finish off the Shuckle before it can set anything up again. And he sends in Chestnut. And Chinese Monstrosity is the perfect check to a Chestnut. I mean, especially if I had Psychic on it, but there's nothing Chestnut can do to a Celebi that's physically bulky. Or a Celebi, period, really. I go ahead and set up my own Stealth Rocks here. Because this person likes to switch. And I don't want to mess around with that. He poisons me. And I decide to switch out and go for... let's see, I don't even remember who I go for here. There's a lot of people I could potentially go into. Took a little while making this play. And if you couldn't tell, this is post-game commentary. I decided I'm going to be doing this from now on for our actual battles on Showdown and such. Team building I'll do live. Let's play I'll still do live. But I kind of like this style of commentary for the battles themselves. I feel like it makes it easier for me to kind of analyze it from a bird's eye view. Alright, so after all of that switching around, we get Rotom Wash against Suicune, and I can get a free Volt Switch here, and I will take that to the bank any day of the week. And he goes into Goodra, and this is the point where I decide, okay, Randall, I'm going to send you in. I'm going to Mega Evolve, and I'm going to start getting my stat boosts. I'm going to get a Dragon Dance up. He does decide to Toxic me. But I feel like I can wreck enough of his team with Randall to where it'll be worth its sacrifice. So he decides to make a raw switch into Chestnut as I go for another Dragon Dance. And I feel ready at this point, so I just start spamming Return. He does go for Spiky Shield, which was obvious, and I should have seen through it. And I also, you know, should have returned earlier on. I got a little greedy with 2 Dragon Dances, which I definitely did not need against this team. I Roost. And I can get a free return off here. Suicune, despite how bulky, is not going to live a ×2 attack return. And he just forfeits the game at that point. We go ahead and get into game 4. We are now 2-1. This is a cool team. A lot of Pokemon that I used to use, you know, Pokemon I would use if I used just Pokemon I like. This looks like something that the Fenneking would have used back a couple years ago when I first got into Showdown. Nice to see kind of that throwback. He leads with Infernape, but then immediately switches into Sceptile. And I expected him to kind of want to switch, so I go into Chinese Monstrosity, not knowing exactly what he would go into, but knowing that it probably wouldn't be favorable against Rotom Wash. And I kind of don't mind sacking off Celebi early in this game because he has a lot of checks to it. This Scizor is one. I expect him to try and Pursuit Trap me here, and that's why I go for Thunder Wave instead of just outright switching. But I have my Stealth Rocks up. I have Scizor paralyzed. I feel like, okay, I can probably switch here. I think the only way I'll die is if he's Choice Banded Pursuit. But he does not end up going for Pursuit. He goes for Swords Dance, which was the very wrong play to make, as UFO can get a free Hidden Power Fire off and one-shot him. And I do not mind making a hard switch into Bruce Chan after that KO on Scizor. Scizor was a huge threat from his team, so I'm very glad to take it out this early. And he goes for a close combat. And at this point, Chinese Monstrosity can handle it, even if he decides to Flare Blitz me or something. So I go for the free Thunder Wave. If he decides to go into a ground type, it wouldn't be that good. The only good ground type he could go into would be Nidoking, and in that case, I have other ways to handle it. So here's Staraptor. I get a free para on it, and it's Stealth Rocked. It is not looking good right now. That is probably the most miserable state a bird can be in. You know, the cage of paralysis and Stealth Rocks makes it not a fun life. And I read the switch into Nidoking and go for a Hydro Pump, taking out one of his ground types, and one that would give me more trouble than Swampert. He goes into Sceptile here, and at this point I think a little bit, what do I want to do here? But I mean, I really don't know. Sceptile can do a lot of things. It can be Mega, it could be Choice Specs, it could even be like, you know, physical acrobatics kind of nonsense. You never know with Sceptile. So I go into UFO not knowing what to expect, and I get the Mega and get Focus Blasted. And now I get a free U-turn from Victini here. Not sure how much it'll do. It ends up doing a good amount, but not quite taking it out. So I go into Chinese Monstrosity. There's not really much Sceptile can do to me, despite me being invested physically rather than specially. But on the other hand, there's not really much I can do to him, as he does get a crit on the Dragon Pulse, which matters, but it's okay. Celebi would have gone down eventually anyways. The only regret is that it didn't get to Giga Drain the Swampert. But we have other ways of taking that thing out. It'll be okay. So I keep using my initiative moves, U-turn and Volt Switch, just kind of going around, making it so I don't have to commit too much to any one option, any one Pokemon. And that's kind of where you want to be playing in OU, or in any tier really. Like, initiative is so good because you don't have to commit. You can literally cover multiple options with one move. And like, there's not very many moves like that that can really afford you the same kind of insurance that U-turn and Volt Switch give. So I end up taking out Swampert there with the burn and then the Hydro Pump, and I'm not afraid of Staraptor. I get the free Volt Switch, and now it is just a free Zen Headbutt away from winning this game. There it is. And we end up finishing our record 3-1. That'll be it for today's battles. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys liked the team that we ended up constructing. If you enjoyed this match, these matches rather, this session on Showdown, then leave a like please, and if you want to see more of me, go ahead and subscribe, join the Fenneking Kingdom, and we'll see you guys next time.